fashion. The Danes with 2 breaks. Swedes all over the place. Nicholas Taylor shouting at the rest of the team, scratching his head. What on earth was going on there? Tor Muller's cut was well broadcast, and Taylor signalling to the rest of the team that Schumann should go and pick him up, but they didn't.
Just a completely busted coverage. Tried to switch, get the player at the back of the stack to drop off and clean that up, but wasn't able to do that, and Faisal Mbaye was inch perfect on that throw. Interesting, actually, the cut developed really early because it looked like Muller came right the way back from that handler spot.
Known as a handler, Tor Muller.
Inch perfect throw from Mbaye.
A lot of the players on this Danish line, well, 2 of them in particular, Tor Muller and Christian Milbu, involved in the wonderful Copenhagen tournament, which ran for 6 years. And it used to attract the big teams from all over Europe up to Copenhagen for a really great weekend, long weekend of Ultimate.
You talked a little bit earlier about how Danes haven't had the best tournament going in. They lost to France 10-5 on day 1, and then to the Netherlands 11-7 also on that first day. And then since then they've done a little bit better. They lost to Ireland in sudden death and then beat Italy 12-9. So maybe now they're just finally getting things starting to click, this Danish side.
Dahlberg gets the disc back from the wing. Swedes starting to look a little bit more comfortable. Hurberg moves the disc nicely down to Hageby. Taylor. Cut underneath, loses his mark, Anders Dahlberg, and a call. 2 players colliding, Dahlberg grabbing the leg. If he got contact there from his Danish counterpart, Rex, Emil Brand Rex.
So signaling that there's not going to be any call there, and so players just going to continue now with Sweden and punching it in immediately.
Well, that is their 3rd offensive point and their 1st point on the board. So the Swedes are going to be not happy, but you know this team has got a lot of resilience. They've played together. They've played as a unit. You were talking about how short the line is. There's 6 players is the difference. In fact, actually, Par Mattisson isn't here, so there's actually 7 players difference. I have to do the actual counting in a minute, but I think it's only 12 players for Sweden, or it might even be 11. It's 11 players for Sweden, which on the beach over a week-long tournament.
It's not a huge amount, I would wager. And interesting as the tournament develops, those legs get a little bit more tired, and other teams can out-hustle them a little bit.
Yeah, the Great Britain Grandmasters which a lot of them were in the Great Britain side which beat Sweden in that 2007 European Championships. They were saying that actually a lot of these players were Grandmasters eligible and they'd opted to play Masters. There's only 2 players on this Masters side who are actually Grandmasters eligible for Sweden. And Danes in the backfield, moving it across, not making much upfield progress at the moment. Linde. And the big disc hawking across the sky. The rundown was in the right direction. The disc hung a little bit too deep and out of the reach of Lasse Gell.
All credit to Gell there, because the one misread we've seen more often than anything else on this field today is there's not a lot of wind. You can just about see the flags in the background with a bit of a flutter, but generally pushes this out of that far side, and he knew immediately. He made a beeline for that far side of that end zone, but just the disc was too far out in front for him to make a play.
Yeah, slightly overcast here, the skies in Portimao this morning, but nothing really to moan about. It's really idyllic conditions and a sensational venue for this tournament. Hanging under the cliffs of Praia da Rocha with the Atlantic to our right, the marina in front of us, which is the hotel complex where all the staff and very lucky that we're staying there as well. See the merchandise tents from our sponsors, VC, over around the grandstand, and the flags of the 22 nations being represented here above the pitches. Leanderson kicks us off again. Big bid coming in, but could not stop the disc arriving in the hands of Joel Højbjerg and making space to the far side of the field. This is better from Sweden. Gets it into the hands of Leanderson again. Now back to Højbjerg. Højbjerg looks deep into the end zone. Leanderson's going to milk it.
Nice play there from Leanderson. He's one of these players who was a big cog on the SWE6 side that took home the mixed gold medal at EUCF last year in Wrocław, Poland.
Yeah, and Martin Hagbill was on that side as well, wasn't he, if I remember rightly. He's playing in the 18 shirt.
Have a look at it again on the replay here. Just doing a very good job of working it around the back, waiting for opportunities to open, and then Fake tries to get the defender to draw to that side, but Stowe stays very flat, and that allows this around break and well weighted, and Leanderson doesn't have to do too much work to let that flow into the end zone.
Well, having crunched the gears a couple for those first points, the Swedes now seem to have found something that's moving them in the right direction. I'm going to put something out there, Benj.
Yep.
I'm not sure how many more points Denmark are going to score. They broke Sweden twice in the first two, but if the Swedes are going to start finding a gear, then the Danes might be up against a very tough task here.
We know that when the Swedes are at their best, they will be pretty difficult to stop. Something interesting about those two D-line about those two breaks that the Danes scored early on. First one only took 2 passes, the second one just a single pass. Whereas when they tried to grind it out, wasn't quite so effective. So maybe they're a team that relies on this big shot.
Disc across to Muller. Muller sends it deep. It's going to be hanging in the end zone beautifully, and I was entirely wrong. I wrote off the Danes way too early, and they score. But again, with one of those quick movements, 2 passes into the end zone, and running it down is Christian Rexer, his first goal of the game.
So it seems very much to me like the Danes thrive off this big play offense. It's a big energy gain when you can convert those points, and they're a team with excellent huckers, and as we've seen, they've got length downfield as well. So although that wasn't a difficult grab at all, thanks to just the cushion on that throw, see the pull just about landing on the tape, and that shows how fine the margins are. I mean, on any surface, but beach especially. Just that ball's like a couple of inches shorter. It's right at the back of the end zone, and the Danes are in a really tough predicament. But overthrow it ever so slightly, and they can bring it in the brick, one swing, and then bang, striking deep.
Yeah, it's a 30-metre difference between that back tape and the brick mark. Taylor looks downfield, sees the options developing. Sporong has it now. Has he got the same zip across the sand as he used to? Wesley has it in hand, moving it well. Sporong's available in the front corner, and Taylor to Sporong. A combination that continues to deliver for Sweden.
I think you might have your answer there, Tom. It looks pretty spry to me.
Yeah.
Wearing that one calf compression sleeve. Seems like Højbjerg's got the other one. I don't know if they came as a pair and they've split it between the two of them.
Well, it's more value that way, surely.
Sporong's definitely known as a big receiver. That time was pretty open, but he's definitely capable of playing some sky ball when they need to. Part of the reason they beat Japan at the aforementioned World Ultimate and Guts Championships in 2012, where Japan were the host nation. It was a very windy day, and Sweden they really played the percentages with their offense. Were happy to take big shots to receivers like Sporong, trusting them to bring it down over their smaller opponents, and they rode him a little bit to that semi-final place where they came within 1 point, it has to be said, of reaching the final.
Yeah, it was Great Britain who beat them in that semi-final. Again, a disc landing out of bounds. The Danes with another chance to bring it forward. Swedes need to tidy that part of their game up. So apart from those, every turn has resulted in a break so far. Very clean defense. Lassie Gale, stats leader for the Danes, sends it deep. He's going to have Leanderson underneath it. But a big bid does not come up with the goods. The disc on the ground, and unfortunately, Christian Mulbu. Is there going to be a call on the throw? I did hear a bit of contact, actually.
It did sound like a hand slap, but I don't. You see, he's got the disc for a while. The cutting in the offense in the middle was very cluttered. A couple of receivers going to the same space, and that meant that there wasn't anything open. In the end, had to try and put it deep on a high stall, give Melbu a chance to make a play, but actually, in the end, little slap of the hand. Force getting a little bit too eager there. It's going to give the Danes the disc back with no stall.
Gale with 8 assists in the game so far, and a huge interception there, laying out horizontally. Joel Højbjerg gets the disc back for Sweden, and straight away Højbjerg involved again across the pitch to Eriksson, back to Højbjerg again, inside, looking for space downfield. There might be an interception here from the Danes, but it's caught at the front by the enormous figure of Johan Leanderson, and his second point of the game takes Sweden to a 4-3 lead.
Fantastic defensive play there from the Swedes. Saw the handler move the disc, swing it across, and then try and clear out, but the defender saw that there was potential opportunity here. The offense not quite spaced properly, and it allowed Højbjerg to come in with a brilliant layout D, just completely read the eyes of the thrower there.
And there's not, I mean, it's such a frustrating thing when you're when you've got the disc in hand. Let's see if we can, here's that. So he looks for there, and there's the interception. It's a great little poach off that he's taken. Decided not to follow the man, instead followed the play, read the play beautifully, and made that block for Sweden. Yeah,
the thrower probably guilty there of just locking onto his target and not seeing the whole field. Lacked a little bit of field vision there, or at least pitch vision. Can you really call it a field if it's on sand?
Beach vision? I don't know.
That'll do.
Face, Mbaye sends the deep disc downfield, Rexer underneath it and catches in stride, no problem. Mbaye delivers his second assist of the game.
Mbaye is such a quality player, incredible athlete, huge thrower we've seen there. Not a lot going on near him, tried to isolate options near the disc, but again, not very well spaced. Two cutters in similar places, making the same cut, and turns and pivots, and just pings this backhand. Beautiful shot, soaring through the sky, and Rex is right underneath it with no defenders. A throw that's Thanos-esque in that he suddenly flicks his wrist and half the defense just disappeared.
I like this. It's very contemporary with your references, Benji, this morning.
That's not a spoiler, by the way. Infinity War came out ages ago.
No spoilers here.
No spoilers for Endgame, promise. But, oh my God!
Well, the fact that Thanos wants to click his fingers is actually in the trailer. You don't have. There's no spoilers there at all.
That Infinity War came out what, a year and a half ago? You only got yourself to blame. You haven't seen that.
Surely, if we're referencing Marvel superheroes and we're talking about the Danes, we should be referring to Thor. But anyway,
wait for the hammers to come out.
Martin Hagerbø sends the disc across to Sebastian Sperong. Wesley cutting sharply underneath. Downfield. Hagerbø sends the disc into the end zone. There's going to be some pressure from the Danes here, but Wesley's read it brilliant, even though he's probably losing 5 inches to his Danish defender. No problem. Just great disc awareness in the sky.
It's an excellent example of how you don't necessarily need to be the tallest or the most physical receiver to bring down those long puts. Positioning and boxing out is just as, or if not more important, because he got the read early, sent the defender on a line under the disc, and then was able to backpedal a little bit, make a catch without too much pressure, not necessarily a hand in the way to knock it out of his path. Excellent box out and position reading there by Simon Wesley.
So the D-lines of having the best time of it at the moment. Both the D-lines have had 2 blocks and 2 conversions. 100% perfect conversions is exactly what a D-line will want to see. And only 4 turnovers the entire game. So they cannot afford, neither of these teams can really afford to lose the disc at the moment.
Just shows what high quality play these teams have put on display for us already this game.
Over on the far side, Gale again. Downfield to Linde. Rexer opens up the shoulders and lots of space in the end zone to throw to, but the disc just caught the breeze, drifted towards the sideline over the head of Jakobsen. Nothing he could do other than watch it into the turf.
I hate to say, but that's a bit of a misread in my eyes. We've seen already the disc going out there, but he got way too underneath the disc, and it's always difficult to read it when you're looking directly up because you can't quite judge the edge properly.
Switch is being called by the Danes as the play continues. Eriksson with the deep shot downfield. Big bid from the Danes, cannot stop it. Leanderson just short of the end zone. Running for cover now. The Swedes trying to make ground up there. Leanderson cuts from the front after dishing off. Low shot into the end zone and a great grab, really required though. Højbjerg's shot into the end zone way too low, but rescued off the sand by Stefan Johansson.
We're seeing here now why you can't afford to turn it over if you're either O-line, because they haven't played the level of defense necessarily required to keep it up. There was one point actually early on after that turn, they took the Swedes swung it into the middle, and they did a pretty good job of stopping downfield movement, and it was an excellent low release break throw around that freed up number 21 Thomas Eriksson, and then from there they were able to go a little bit forward with that big shot to Lee Anderson. And it's partly because the big shot came because they're shooting off movement. It's really difficult to get, especially with a big force on that's going quite flat and straight up to stop that hut. To get that deep shot going from a standstill, it's much easier if you can get it going while your offense is already in motion.
The timeout called by the Danes. Tor Muller amping up the team, trying to see if they can recapture the magic of the first 2 points of this game. They made the dream start with 2 breaks starting on defense. And 2 breaks and 3 passes later, they had a 2-0 lead, but that has slipped away.
So if we look at the Masters division as a whole, this is a bit of a pool of death. Sweden, Great Britain and France all unbeaten coming into this game. Obviously with Great Britain and France playing each other, that's not going to hold up. But in the other pool, Pool B, no teams undefeated. The top 3 at the moment are Czech Republic, Russia and Germany. But Spain have also got a couple of wins as well. Curry Ireland are the only team in that pool without a win so far. It's the division as a whole is incredibly deep and everyone's beating everyone. It's a bit of a bloodbath really at the top end of either pool.
Well, I think the system for the Masters, because there's what have we got, 12
I think
teams?
it's 14 teams. So the top 3 in each pool go straight into quarterfinals, and the 4th team from each pool plays the 5th team from the other pool in a pre-quarter match. That's sure to be a little bit spicy, so you still really make the top 5 in the pool and you've still got your fate in your own hands.
Yeah, we're chatting with Sean Colfer, who's writing for the tournament this week, trying to explain the different permutations that are possible. Right here, Denmark and Sweden are battling it out in the other pool, which is a bit more straightforward. Mulbu across to Muller. Downfield is the 24 shirt of Anderson. Back to Muller. Up the line shot, but the run hadn't quite got going, and Muller's disc was too close to the sideline. Nothing that Tuff Krenschel could do.
It's a little bit difficult as a big man to move quite as lithely across the sand, and difficult getting down a little bit more quickly than some maybe of your more stringier counterparts.
Taylor changes of direction downfield from Dahlberg, and he has a disc now. Hagebull sets off at pace. Eriksson right across the pitch. This is great work from Sweden, really expansive, creating spaces, the right cutter cutting at the right time. Dahlberg continues that trend. Hageby spreads the play. This is superb from Sweden. Look at the space they're operating in here, running around the Danish defence. Denmark not able to get anywhere near the disc. Taylor with a pause as Milbu establishes the mark to Eriksson. Eriksson knocking on the door, cutting to that side. Can they get anything out? Push pass back to Taylor. Taylor looking for a gap through the middle and completely exposed Martin Hageby at the front corner. And Swedes, 2 breaks in a row. Might they be taking this game away? They take the half.
And that's a much slower point there. That's the most passes we've seen in any point. 25 passes combined, 11 for the Danish offense before they turned it over, and the Swedes just ping-ponged their way a little bit down the field. 14 passes, a lot slower than some of the points we've seen in terms of pace of advancing down the field. But the Swedes haven't, after those first couple of points, they haven't turned it over at all. And it's so difficult to play against a team who, when they're not making mistakes, you've really got to force the turns because they're not giving them away for free. Well,
it's very interesting actually. Denmark, on the points where they've scored, the combined number of passes that the Danes have taken is 9. They scored 4 of their points with a combined total of 9 passes. So I think that just shows when the Swedes are able to force them to play, they're able to get those turns. And when they can use their long game, the Danes are actually really quite dangerous.
So having a couple of problems in our scoreboard. Its score is 7-4 at the moment. Just being a little bit slow to update. Maybe there's a bit of sand in the system. There we go.
Mbe sends the disc downfield, running and chasing, but watching the disc dying. Jakobsen, frustrated. One of the most recognisable haircuts on the field so far. Or what am I saying? Tor Muller's around here somewhere. He's definitely got the most recognisable haircut.
Just a bit too much zip on that throw. Really just motored out of his hand, and could have done with just taking a little bit of spice off the disc, especially you think this early in the morning. Maybe just dunk one of your... You know how they talk about sailors having sea legs? Like, do you think beach people have sand legs? Like, it can take a bit of time, like, just to adjust to make sure you're going your full speed on the sand. There's a slightly different running motion to you have on other surfaces.
Yeah, I've heard much discussion about the correct running motion for being effective across sand. Leanderson, disc down to Dahlberg. Dahlberg swings it back. Wesley available. Into the centre of the field for Dahlberg again. Moves it forward, Leanderson. Gets it across to Wesley. Simon Wesley. Back to Erik Dahlberg. Again, really patient from the Swedes now. The Danes always seeming to be chasing shadows. Got a higher stall count now, looking for something, and Wesley's available. Back to Dahlberg again. Dahlberg floats it beautifully to Wesley's crossfield cut. Back to Dahlberg, Leanderson's available. Better from the Swedes, just really patient, not forcing anything, making the Danes work. The Danes have got legs on in this line though.
This Danish defense doing a very good job. There's the hammer, the Swedes uncork it. Nice grab with one hand and from the floor. Veteran move there from number 13, Stefan Johansson, and Leanderson reels in his 3rd goal of the game.
That was very classy, wasn't it? From the sand, having laid out, just going to throw it up into the fast cut. Yeah, the Danes did a little bit better of a job. You know, they were just taking away the deep option for the Swedes, forcing the Swedes to cut under. But they just kept doing it and kept rotating through the line.
This is the key throw here, that hammer over the top of Linda's head. One hand falls over a little bit, but presence of mind, look up, see there's a cut developing, and actually I don't need to get up and steady myself. I can make this throw from the floor for an 8-4 lead. So just a little bit of context as well. Obviously, we mentioned the 2 other undefeated teams in this pool, France and Great Britain playing right now. They're currently tied up at 7 apiece.
Ooh.
So that's, you know, that's a spot. So
I wonder if we can see that game. I'm not sure if it's... We've got Spain and Germany playing right behind us from our commentary position. Can't see... Oh no, Great Britain.
And they're the Great Britain France on the pitch beyond that both sides are going to be a tough out in this tournament.
Denmark trailing Sweden. Mott dumps it back to Beck. Beck across field to Muller. Muller looking downfield. And a floaty disc from Muller into space. That is a great... Oh, what was I saying? Rex had to do basically nothing. Just catch it in the end zone. And he apologises. Muller had done all the hard work. Maybe he was thinking about the celebration he was going to put in there.
Yeah, Muller telegraphed that throw a little bit, but the force didn't adjust, didn't come round and stop that, and allowed that roll curving backhand straight into the path of Rex. But sometimes you've got so much time to think about it. It seems like it's there for an absolute age, and because you know you've got no reason not to catch it.
Suddenly you don't.
Yeah, it's a lot of the time it's mental with drops like that. I mean, almost always mental with drops like that.
Sperong opens the arm, Taylor the target, reaches high and takes it down. The Swedes motoring through, and they've been steady when they've had the disc against Denmark, but their O-line comes out and just clicks into place. So their D-line, actually it's the O-line playing D is what's happened there. They've switched the line around, give the D-line a bit of a break.
So Sperong's known more as a receiver, but coming into this game, he only had 4 goals compared to 6 assists.
Well, he's just the threat. You know, he's the Mike Grant of Sweden. He's the, what's the modern day equivalent of Mike Grant? It's my old Jimmy Mickle. He's the Jimmy Mickle of Swedish Ultimate. He's a threat deep. He's a threat with the disc in his hand. You can't really give him anything.
It's a bit of a pick your poison, isn't it? How much say? Well, do we take away the deep? Do we back him? Make him come and get the disc under, so he just can't burn us in one easy deep reception, or do we front him and try and bait that throw and hope that we can put pressure on the handlers to put up a slightly dodgy disc? I mean, either way, it's not a particularly fun option. And obviously, as a big deep receiver as well, you get a lot of those points where you're doing little work to get the assist. There's another handler getting what people call the hockey assist, like with the big throw, caught just shy of the end zone and someone popping it in.
We've seen a few players over the years quite as effective as Sebastian Sperong. Rex set for Denmark. Trying to re-establish a bit of flow for this Danish O-line. They've been broken 4 times in a row, and it's not going to happen for them again this time. They've given the disc to the Swedes, and the Swedes have been very reluctant to hand it back. Johansson sends it deep, and this time they are going to give the disc back. An overthrow. The wind is kind of downwind that direction. It's a light breeze, but
you are very good at putting the mockers on this game, Tom Stiles. There's a couple of times you've seemingly done that. That's the first time Sweden have turned the disc over since the 2nd point of the game. Started with those 2 Danish breaks, and since then they've nary had a sniff of the disc on D, but they're going to get their first chance at a break since that 2nd point now. Oh, sorry, it's an O point, isn't it? Excuse me.
Oh, great vision from Eriksson to poach off and try to get that block. Could not quite get there. Lands safely in the hands of Kraglund.
Kraglund making amends for that earlier drop this point.
So this is the first time that the Swedes have turned the disc over since the opening 2 points of the game. Been completely clinical, but that one overthrow. And I've been really impressed, actually, that Sweden historically was so reliant on Taylor and Sperong as their 2 key players. But here, they've spread the stats around the whole side. Oh, a touch off. It didn't make it to the hands of Mbaye. Quick movement from the Swedes, looking for a quick shot. The Danes flurry around, trying to stop everything, but they could not stop the big stride of Johan Leanderson as they take this game to 10-4 and 3 away from the complete victory. It's a game to 13, Benji.
4 goals this game for Johan Leanderson, absolutely stuffing the stat sheet, and a lot of these Swedish team were famous for plying their club trade with the infamous Skogskiden, and one of their end zone play was to isolate one or two receivers at the front of the end zone, and then often rely on those big, wide, low breaks of force. You see there Leanderson getting himself a nice little double happiness as well, laying out for the D, and Umbe maybe thought that disc wasn't going to come and pulled out. Leanderson waited for it to develop though, got the layout, and then they just about organised their offense, and that cut to the break side, that low, raking around backhand to Leanderson, finding pay dirt. I remember when the European scene, the club scene, was defined by battles between Skogskiden and Clapham.
Oh, and Chevron and Skogskiden as well, don't forget.
Chevron European champions in 2010?
2009.
2009.
2009 European club champions at the ex-UCF.
That's another old reference, Tom. Doing very well on that drinking game this morning.
Angelou, yeah. I think technically that one was your fault.
Well, yes, but it doesn't matter.
I remember that tournament very well because my wife was 38 weeks pregnant when that tournament was on, and I was on call just in case I needed to go back and deliver a baby, but luckily you waited another week. Disc across the field, and a big bid from Sperong to try and get the block, but it lands safely with Thomas Vestergaard. Spins around, takes the disc across to Jakobsen. Jakobsen sends it deep, running this one down. The Sand Monster's got hold of the ankle, and I don't know what happened there with Angelou. He seemed to stumble and not able to establish any sort of run at all across the sand.
Yeah, the Sand Monster, of course, related to the Turf Monster. I wonder if that one's the Tape Monster, whether he got his foot caught on that tape which marks the front line of the end zone.
It's actually remarkable how little the tape affects play. You should think, given where it is, it's actually quite difficult to see from a camera angle. You need to go in there and shake it off.
I think something as well. This tends to happen as the tournament progresses as well, and the sand gets a bit more churned up. You get deeper divots under the tape, and it has a bit more of an effect.
Sperong with a great cut deep and a little send into the end zone. Martin Hageball doing the work with the legs to get himself free of the attention of Jakobsen, and no problem at all for the Swedes.
I wouldn't necessarily have called Sperong a finesse player, but that's a little finesse throw there, that lefty backhand. Love that look for the score.
Yeah, the 2009 championships was the year that Skogs beat, what am I saying? Yeah, Skogs beat Clapham in the semi-final. And then Chevron, who played the best tournament I think I've ever seen them play, beat Skogs in the final. It was a real sort of role reversal at the top of British Ultimate and at the top of European Ultimate. We're so used to seeing Clapham dominate.
And the Swedish side as well took gold in Maribor in the EUC in 2011 as well, where again they beat Great Britain in the final. Those two programs have had a lot of tough battles over years, and you can see why this Swedish side is so good when you look at their incredibly bulging full trophy cabinets. What a pull that is from the Swedes as well.
Yeah, both the big defenders arriving, the wide arms, managing to establish that force in the middle of the end zone. Real pressure for the Danes to deal with, but they are coping, and then just as I say that, they dish the disc right into the hands of Højbjerg. Højbjerg now moving well, and Leanderson connects. And again, it's Johansson who provides the disc downfield, and we're within one of the victory.
It's been unstoppable on the sand this game, Tom.
So I did call it at 2-0, at 2-2. I wondered how many more points Denmark would score. I said they wouldn't score any, but I was wrong. They scored a couple, but then, yeah, Swedes have clicked into gear, and they run away with it. So since 4-all, the Danes have been turned and burned, and cleanly as well. That's a really hard thing to live with. We've seen teams who are getting breaks, but they're managing to get the disc back a couple of times. At least they feel like they've got a chance, and maybe they're losing this with making their own mistakes, but here it's not missed opportunities. It's just they're just being beaten by the Swedes.
Yeah, their own line's only generated 1 turnover, trying to get the disc back, and
that was a throwaway.
And exactly, I mean, there are some teams who will happy to play a more inherently high-risk, deep game style, and then because they back themselves to get the disc back on defence. But with the Danes, their O-line defence has been somewhat wanting, and that's why we've got this big deficit.
Yeah, Jakobsen. The Danes did say they felt like they'd trained harder than the Swedes have. They know, obviously, quite close geographically to each other. They felt they'd put the hard work in as a squad, but it's just the raw talent and the chemistry that these players have from Sweden. That's a nice disc from Muller to Jakobsen, opening an opportunity for the Danes to jam it in, but can they find any sort of freedom on the sand? Low disc, it was the right idea from Jakobsen, but ahead of a very despondent Muller. He looks downfield, he looks at the disc, he looks at the sand, and he looks dejected.
Kraglund had a bit of space there to Jakobsen's right, and because that defender there was sagging off a little bit, poaching into that front corner of the end zone, maybe trying to stop any around break going into the zone, and he just never really turned around and looked and recognised that as an option. You've got to make sure you've got that field sense, that pitch awareness to know where everyone is at all times.
In many ways, the disc into the end zone from Jakobsen was the right shot. Muller was free and available. And he having a little joke with Martin Hageby to walk away. Yeah, apologies if you are doing the commentary drinking game this morning, because
who would do a drinking game at 8:30 in the morning? Don't answer that.
That's a bit rough, actually. Well, maybe people tuning in from Australia to catch some European beach ultimate. That's not unheard of, is it?
No, certainly not. And why not? With a setting like this, why wouldn't you want to watch?
So if you are watching, tell you what, wherever you're watching in the world, what we'd love you to do, it'd really make our day, is if you just take a shot of you and your buddies watching. Maybe they're tuning in Scandinavia this morning to watch this Scandinavian matchup.
Yeah, a couple of hours ahead of us there.
So take your camera out, snap a shot of you and your watching crew watching the coverage from the beach wherever you are, and then you can send it to us on Twitter. If you hashtag EBUC 2019, and I'm at Tom Styles on Twitter.
And unsurprisingly, I am at Benjamin Rees.
And we would love to see wherever you are. There's a lot of people have worked extremely hard to be able to bring this coverage to you. And if you're enjoying it, so we really hope you are, do us a favour and just click that thumbs up button. Post a link into your social and let your friends, whether they're disc players or not, let them know that there's live ultimate from the beaches here in Praia da Rocha all week.
Yeah, whether you're tuning into us live on YouTube or you're watching the Facebook stream, thank you very much for joining us here.
Late bailout, and Jakobsen deals with it above Taylor. Taylor shrugs the shoulders, a bit frustrated. Disc from Hageby. It was the turnout there, Benji.
Because of the turnout. That's definitely, I think that's the best we've seen the Danish O-line play defense. Maybe knowing that if we can't get the turn here, it's game over. So just maybe a little bit added incentive, perhaps.
Floats it forward. Milbu just did not see it. He looked around over the shoulder, found the disc ahead of him again, dives to the turf.
Could have done maybe with a little bit more help communicatively from his teammates as to exactly the location of that disc.
Ketzler to Taylor. Taylor back to Sperong, back to Ketzler again. On the far side of the field is Wesley. He has the disc now. Downfield is Sperong. It comes to Hageby, to Taylor. Sperong cutting into the end zone. There's going to be some pressure from the Danes. The disc hangs in the air, and for the first time in a long time, I've seen Sperong fingertip it off and not catch it.
Yeah, puts his hand up, knows that was... No, so he probably should have brought that down, but it was not a particularly good throw, it has to be said. Showed too much of the underside of the disc of the wind, and that's the mistake we've seen so often this week. That wind kind of pushing away from the cameras, slightly right to left, and
And all the players if they're on this side, they've been getting a little bit of protection from the tents and the commentary booth. As soon as that disc gets up in the air, the tents and the commentary booth are no longer a factor. And it's fooled a number of players.
So I think this is the first point for the entire game where both sides have had more than one turnover.
Milbu fakes, sends the disc back. Krenchel back to Milbu. And the disc from Milbu to Jakobsen does not connect. Tired, weary players, hands on the knees to try and gasp some air. Running hard at the end of this match. Denmark seem to have found an extra gear here, but it's disc going long. Wesley, the target, he's going to have to lay out. He does, but he doesn't quite end up in the end zone. Taylor and Hogby are running up to try and catch him and help him out. Taylor has it now. Wesley is going to be isolating that one player in the end zone, as they do so well. The Swedes punch it in and they take the game in this men's Masters division, continuing their run. They are 4 from 4 and they are looking strong favourites to take the title at the moment.
I mean, obviously, I'm not a betting man anyway, and even if I were, and obviously not while I'm doing this, it would be highly inappropriate, but
if you were.
But the Swedes have to be the hot favourites.
They do. They absolutely do. They look really, really good in there. The really long line of Denmark. They had the extra legs, but just could not find a way of using them and lacked the chemistry and cohesion of the Swedes. Great plays throughout the line, but you have to give props to Leanderson for his 5 goals.
Yeah, something I would say as well, we talked about Swedes having a much shorter roster. Kind of doesn't matter if you don't have that many players, if you could finish games relatively quickly.
Yeah, over and done with in 45 minutes, getting to the point cap. And the players that have faced off against each other for so many years will be huddling together and enjoying a few moments as they recognise the good plays and great spirit of that game. Completely clean in terms of calls, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, just 1 or 2, but all resolved quickly and fairly, which is exactly what you like to see.
So 13-4 from the Swedes. If you would like to stay with us, we've got an action-packed day here of coverage from the beaches. The party in Portimao continues as we bring you more action from the Algarve. We've got Germany versus Switzerland in the mixed Masters division. That's coming up at 9:40. At 10:50, we've got Great Britain, Portugal in the mixed division. That's going to be a great game. And then the reunification of Tom Stiles and Steve Giguère for the Belgium versus Portugal men's match at 12 o'clock local time. And then all afternoon, we've got mixed Masters, Masters women's, Grandmaster men's, and Great Grandmaster men's action from the arena field. If you want to know more about what's being streamed, check out live.ebuc2019.org. And from all of our Ulti TV crew, myself, Tom Stiles, alongside our statistician Brian and the wonderful Benji Rees, very good morning to you all, and we'll catch you very soon.